Welcome to HFY Stories. If you're ready for jaw-dropping stories and a universe full of excitement, hit that subscribe button like it's the big red button in a space opera. Give us a like if you're feeling that interstellar vibe and comment below to join the conversation. A stranger in the night. It was a typical Friday night at Rosie's diner. The bright neon lights flickered against the starless sky, drawing in weary truckers and night owls seeking solace in hot coffee and greasy food. Jenna Lawson, a waitress in her late 20s, was used to the late-night rush. With her light brown hair tied back and a warm smile, she made everyone feel welcome. But tonight was different. Tonight, a stranger would cross her path. Jenna was wiping down the counter when the door creaked open, the bell chiming softly. She looked up, expecting to see another trucker, but her heart skipped a beat. An old man, his frame frail and cloaked in a long tattered coat, stood hesitantly at the entrance. His skin had a strange, almost translucent hue, and his eyes, large and shimmering, were a shade of violet. Jenna felt a chill run down her spine, but she quickly masked it with a smile. "Evening, sir. What can I get for you?" she asked, her voice warm and welcoming. The old man shuffled in, his movements slow and deliberate. He glanced around, his eyes darting to every corner of the diner, before he settled into a booth near the window. Jenna approached, her notepad ready, but as she got closer, she noticed the man's hands were trembling. They were unlike any hands she'd ever seen. His fingers were elongated, ending in soft, rounded tips, and his skin seemed to shimmer under the fluorescent lights. I need something warm," he said, his voice a whisper, barely audible. Jenna leaned in closer, trying to understand him. "Anything warm," he repeated, his accent strange, the words clipped. Jenna nodded, her curiosity piqued. She hurried to the kitchen, where Rosie, the stout, no-nonsense cook, was flipping pancakes. "Rosie, we got a special order. Can you get me a bowl of your best chicken soup? And make it quick, will you?" Rosie raised an eyebrow. "Since when did we get so fancy? But sure, coming right up." As Jenna waited, she couldn't help but glance over at the old man. There was something about him that didn't quite fit. His clothes, though tattered, were of a material she'd never seen before, and his eyes. Those eyes held a depth that spoke of experiences far beyond anything she could imagine. Rosie handed her the bowl of steaming soup, and Jenna carried it over to the man. As she placed it before him, he looked up, his violet eyes locking onto hers. For a moment, Jenna felt a wave of emotion wash over her, fear, sadness, and a strange sense of longing. "Thank you," he said softly, picking up the spoon with his unusual fingers and sipping the soup slowly. Jenna noticed his shoulders relax slightly, the warmth of the soup bringing some color to his pale face. She slid into the seat across from him, her curiosity getting the better of her. "If you don't mind me asking, sir, what's your name? I haven't seen you around here before." The man hesitated, his eyes narrowing as if he were searching for the right words. "I am called Verax," he finally said, each syllable deliberate. "And you are not like the others." Jenna's heart skipped a beat. "The others," she echoed, her mind racing. "You mean other people?" Verax shook his head, a sad smile on his lips. "No, not people. Others like me. My race. My kind." A silence settled between them, the hum of the diner's lights filling the air. Jenna felt a knot tighten in her stomach. "You're not from around here, are you, Verax?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Verax looked out the window, his eyes distant. "No," he said, his voice tinged with sorrow. "I am not. I come from a place far from here." a place that no longer welcomes me. Jenna's mind spun with questions, but she held back, sensing the weight of Virax's words. "Well, you're welcome here," she said softly. "And as long as I'm around, you won't be alone." Virax turned to her, his violet eyes shimmering with gratitude. "Thank you, Jenna," he said. "Your kindness is a light in the darkness." As the night wore on, Jenna stayed with Virax, listening to him speak of worlds beyond her imagination. He spoke of galaxies and stars, of places where the air was thick with colors and sounds she couldn't comprehend. And as he spoke, Jenna felt a strange connection to this old alien, abandoned and alone in a world that was not his own. But as the first light of dawn began to creep over the horizon, Jenna couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Virax's story than he was letting on. She sensed a danger lurking just beyond the edges of his words, a threat that could shatter the fragile peace they had found in each other's company. Jenna made a silent promise to herself. She would protect Virax, no matter what. Little did she know, this promise would soon lead her down a path of danger, discovery, and a bond that would change both their lives forever. Shadows of the past. The days that followed Virax's arrival were filled with quiet conversations and cautious companionship. Jenna found herself looking forward to her shifts at the diner, eager to hear more of Virax's stories. The old alien's presence had become a comfort to her, his tales of distant worlds a welcome distraction from her own life's monotony. One night, after the diner had closed and the last of the regulars had left, Jenna and Virax sat in their usual booth. The dim lighting cast soft shadows on the walls, creating a cocoon of intimacy around them. Jenna sipped her coffee, her eyes fixed on Virax as he recounted his life among the stars. "I was once a scholar," Virax said, his voice soft and wistful. "I traveled from planet to planet, learning, teaching, observing. My race, the Varkari, valued knowledge above all else. We were explorers, scientists, but we were also proud, too proud." Jenna listened intently, sensing a heaviness in Virax's words. "What happened?" she asked gently. Virax's eyes clouded with sorrow. "There was a conflict," he said slowly, choosing his words with care. "A war between my people and another race. We were winning, but our pride, our arrogance, blinded us to the true cost of victory. In the end, we became the very thing we despised. To ensure our survival, we made choices. Terrible choices." Jenna's heart ached at the pain in Virax's voice. "And you were cast out because of those choices?" Virax nodded, his expression haunted. "I spoke out against them, against the war, the destruction. I was deemed a traitor, a threat to our unity. So they sent me away, abandoned me on a planet far from home, far from everything I knew." Jenna reached out, placing her hand over Virax's elongated fingers. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "No one should have to go through that." Virax looked up, his violet eyes meeting hers. "You are kind, Jenna. Kinder than I deserve. I have seen much, done much, but your compassion is a rare and precious thing." Jenna felt a warmth spread through her chest at his words. She had always been drawn to helping others, but there was something about Virax that touched her deeply. She couldn't explain it, but she felt a bond with him, a connection that transcended the boundaries of their vastly different worlds. Just then, the diner's door swung open, the bell jingling loudly. Jenna and Virax turned to see a figure standing in the doorway, silhouetted against the dim light outside. The figure stepped forward, revealing a tall, imposing man with sharp features and cold, calculating eyes. He wore a long coat, similar to Virax's, but his demeanor was anything but frail. "Virax," the man said, his voice low and menacing. I have been looking for you." Jenna felt a chill run down her spine. The stranger's presence filled the diner with an air of danger, his gaze cold and unyielding. Virax's face paled, his body tensing as if preparing for a blow. "Who are you?" Jenna demanded, her protective instincts kicking in. "What do you want?" The man ignored her, his eyes fixed on Virax. "You have been a difficult one to track down, old friend," he said, his tone mocking. "But I knew you wouldn't stray far. You always did have a soft spot for the lower beings." Virax's hands clenched into fists, his violet eyes burning with a fire Jenna hadn't seen before. "What do you want, Drex?" he asked, his voice trembling with barely contained anger. Drex smirked, his expression one of cruel satisfaction. "You know what I want, Virax. The Council wants you back. You have information we need, and I'm here to collect it, willingly or not." Jenna's heart pounded in her chest. She glanced at Virax, seeing the fear and resolve in his eyes. She knew she couldn't let this Drex take him. Not after everything Virax had been through. "You can't take him," Jenna said, stepping in front of Virax, her voice steady and firm. "He's not going anywhere with you." Drex's eyes flicked to Jenna, a look of disdain crossing his face. "And what do you plan to do to stop me, human?" he sneered. "You are nothing compared to us. Step aside, or face the consequences." Jenna's jaw clenched, her fists balling at her sides. She might not have the power or strength of these aliens, but she wasn't going to let Virax be taken without a fight. Before she could react, Drex moved with lightning speed, his hands shooting out to grab her by the throat. Jenna gasped, her hands flying to his, struggling to break free. Drex's grip was like iron, his eyes cold and merciless. "Enough of this," Drex hissed. "You will come with me, Virax, or I will crush this pathetic creature's life right now." Jenna's vision blurred, the edges darkening as Drex's grip tightened. She could hear Virax shouting, but the sound was distant, muffled. She struggled to breathe, her fingers clawing at Drex's hand. Suddenly, a bright flash of light filled the diner, and Drex's grip loosened. Jenna fell to the floor, gasping for air. She looked up to see Virax standing, his hand outstretched, a strange device in his palm. It emitted a soft glow, pulsating with energy. "Leave her alone," Virax said, his voice steady, a quiet strength emanating from him. Drex staggered back, his face contorted with rage and pain. "You dare use that against me," he snarled, his eyes blazing. Virax stepped forward, his stance firm. "I will not let you harm her," he said. "I will not let you take me without a fight." Drex's eyes narrowed, his lips curling into a snarl. "This isn't over, Virax." Not by a long shot. With that, Drex turned and stormed out of the diner, the door slamming shut behind him. Jenna lay on the floor, her breath coming in ragged gasps, her body trembling. Virax rushed to her side, his face filled with concern. "Jenna, are you all right?" he asked, helping her to sit up. Jenna nodded, still trying to catch her breath. "I'm fine," she managed to say, her voice shaky. Who was that?" Virax's eyes darkened. "An old enemy," he said quietly. "And now he knows where I am. We are not safe here, Jenna. Not anymore." As Jenna looked into Virax's violet eyes, she felt a surge of determination. She didn't know what lay ahead, but she knew one thing for certain. She would stand by Virax, no matter what. Together, they would face whatever dangers awaited them. A plan for survival. The diner's neon sign flickered weakly in the early morning light, casting an eerie glow over the empty parking lot. Jenna and Virax huddled in a corner booth, the once cozy space now charged with tension. Jenna's heart raced as she watched Virax, his alien features illuminated by the soft light of the diner's remaining lamps. She could see the determination in his eyes, the weight of the threat they faced pressing heavily on him. "We need to get out of here," Virax said, his voice low and urgent. "Drex will not rest until he finds me, and he's not alone. There are others who would come for me if they knew my location." Jenna nodded, her mind racing. "Where can we go? Do you have a safe place?" Virax hesitated, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his face. I have contacts, but they are far from here. It will take time to reach them, and Drex's reach is long." Jenna reached out, placing a reassuring hand on his. "We'll figure it out together. Let's think this through." Virax's eyes softened at her gesture, but the worry remained. "Thank you, Jenna. I appreciate your help more than you know." Before Jenna could respond, the diner's door creaked open. Jenna's heart sank as she saw two uniformed officers enter, their expressions stern and professional. They scanned the room before their eyes settled on Jenna and Virax. "Miss Lawson," one of the officers called out, his voice commanding. "We need to speak with you and your guest." Jenna's stomach dropped. The last thing they needed was attention from law enforcement. Virax's eyes darted around the room, his anxiety palpable. "Let me handle this," Jenna whispered, standing up and walking toward the officers. "Can I help you, officers?" The lead officer, a tall man with a graying mustache, fixed his gaze on Jenna. "We've had reports of a disturbance here last night. We need to ask some questions about the altercation with that alien." Jenna's heart raced, but she kept her voice steady. "There was no altercation, just a misunderstanding. Everything's fine now." The officer's gaze shifted to Virax, who was still sitting in the booth, his eyes wary. "Is that the individual involved?" "Yes, but like I said, it was a misunderstanding," Jenna repeated, her mind racing. "He's just a traveler passing through." The officer's eyes narrowed. "We have reason to believe this individual might be involved in something more serious. We need to take him in for questioning." Jenna's pulse quickened. "You can't do that. He's done nothing wrong." The officer's face hardened. "We're not here to debate. We're following orders. Step aside." As the officer moved toward Virax, Jenna's mind spun with panic. She needed to think fast. With a quick glance at Virax, she saw him reaching into his coat, his fingers brushing against a small device. She understood. He was about to use his alien technology to escape. "Wait," Jenna said suddenly, trying to buy time. "Can you at least give us a moment? I just need to grab some papers." The officer hesitated, his eyes scrutinizing her. "Make it quick." Jenna darted back to the booth, her mind racing. "Virax, we need to go. Now." Virax nodded, his face set in determination. He slipped the device into his hand, his fingers working quickly. The officers were still watching them, their attention divided. Jenna grabbed Virax's arm, pulling him toward the back exit of the diner. As they reached the kitchen, Jenna glanced back to see the officers following them. Panic surged through her, but she kept her focus. "We have to move fast." Virax activated the device, and a shimmering portal appeared in front of them, pulsating with an otherworldly light. Jenna's eyes widened in awe and fear. "What is that?" "A temporary teleportation device," Virax explained quickly. "It can get us to a safe location, but it's not perfect. We might end up somewhere unpredictable." Without another word, Jenna and Virax stepped through the portal. The world spun around them, and for a moment, Jenna felt a sensation of weightlessness. When they emerged, they found themselves in a dense forest, the air thick with the scent of pine and damp earth. Jenna stumbled, catching her balance as she looked around. The forest was dark and foreboding, the only light coming from the moon filtering through the treetops. She could hear distant sounds of wildlife, but there was no sign of civilization. "Where are we?" Jenna asked, her voice trembling. "Not far from the city," Virax said, his eyes scanning the surroundings. "This is a safe place for now, but we need to keep moving. Drex will be looking for us." Jenna nodded, her determination renewed. "Then let's find somewhere secure and figure out our next move." They started to walk, Virax leading the way with a practiced ease despite the unfamiliar terrain. Jenna followed closely, her thoughts racing. She knew they couldn't stay in the forest forever, but for now, it was a refuge from the immediate danger. As they walked, Jenna couldn't help but glance at Virax. The old alien had become more than just a stranger to her. He was a friend in need, and she was determined to help him. The bond between them had grown stronger, and despite the fear and uncertainty, there was a glimmer of hope. Suddenly, Virax stopped, holding up a hand. "We need to be careful. There are surveillance systems in the area. We must avoid detection." Jenna's heart skipped a beat. "Surveillance systems? What do you mean?" Virax's eyes were focused, his expression serious. "The Varkari have advanced technology. They might have placed monitoring devices in various locations. We must stay off the grid." Jenna swallowed hard. "All right. We'll be cautious." They continued through the forest, their steps careful and deliberate. Jenna could feel the weight of their situation pressing down on her, but she kept moving forward. She had made a promise to protect Virax, and she intended to see it through. After what felt like hours, they came across a small, hidden cabin nestled in a clearing. It looked abandoned, but it provided some semblance of safety. Virax checked the surroundings before nodding in approval. "This will do for now," Virax said. "We can rest here and plan our next steps." Jenna sighed in relief as they entered the cabin, the darkness of the forest replaced by the dim light of a single lantern inside. The cabin was sparse but functional, with a few pieces of old furniture and a fireplace. As they settled in, Jenna and Virax began to discuss their next move. The threat from Drex and his associates was looming large, but Jenna was determined to protect her friend and find a way to resolve the crisis. A new dawn. The small cabin was quiet, save for the crackling of the fire that Virax had started. Jenna sat at a rickety table, her fingers tapping restlessly on the wormwood as she looked over a map of the area that Virax had sketched out. She could hear the distant calls of night creatures and the whisper of wind through the trees, a reminder of the world outside their temporary sanctuary. Virax was busy examining a series of holographic images projected from his device. His face was etched with concentration, his violet eyes reflecting the soft light of the fire. Despite his alien appearance, there was something profoundly human about his expression, an understanding of fear, hope, and resolve that transcended species. Jenna took a deep breath, her eyes settling on Virax. "What's the plan?" Virax glanced up, a hint of exhaustion in his eyes. "We need to get to a secure location where I can contact my allies. They will help us navigate this situation and deal with Drex." Jenna nodded, her resolve strengthening. "How far is this place?" "Not too far," Virax said, pointing to a spot on the map. "It's a hidden outpost, well outside of the city's reach. We can make it there by morning if we leave now." Jenna's heart sank slightly at the thought of leaving the relative safety of the cabin so soon, but she knew they had little choice. "All right, we'll head out in a few hours." Let's get some rest before we go." Virax agreed, and they both settled down in the sparse cabin. Jenna lay on a makeshift bed, her thoughts swirling with worry and anticipation. She couldn't shake the image of Drex's menacing face or the weight of their mission. Yet, she found comfort in the presence of Virax, who, despite being an alien, had become a source of strength and camaraderie. The hours passed slowly, and before Jenna knew it, the first light of dawn was filtering through the cracks in the cabin walls. She rose with a start, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. Virax was already up, preparing supplies for their journey. They set out just as the sun began to rise, casting a golden hue over the landscape. The forest seemed less intimidating in the daylight, though the threat of Drex and his associates loomed large. Jen and Virax moved cautiously, their pace steady but quick. As they travelled, Jenna couldn't help but steal glances at Virax. He had shown remarkable resilience and bravery throughout their ordeal. The bond between them had deepened, transforming from mere companionship to a genuine connection forged in the fires of adversity. After several hours of trekking through dense woods and rugged terrain, they arrived at the outpost, a discreet facility hidden within a cavern. The entrance was camouflaged against the surrounding rock, and the security measures were sophisticated. Virax approached the entrance and activated a security panel. The door slid open with a soft hiss, revealing a technologically advanced interior. The space was sleek and functional, with walls lined with monitors and equipment. A tall, elegant figure greeted them inside, an alien with shimmering scales and a graceful demeanor. The figure's eyes widened in recognition upon seeing Virax. "Virax, it's been too long," the alien said, extending a hand in greeting. "I see you've brought a human with you." "This is Jenna," Virax introduced. "She's been invaluable in helping me evade capture. Jenna, this is Tharax, a trusted ally." Jenna shook Tharax's hand, feeling a sense of relief wash over her. "Thank you for meeting us. We're in serious trouble." Tharax nodded, his expression serious. "I've heard about the threat you're facing. We've been monitoring the situation and are ready to assist. Let's discuss our options." The three of them moved to a conference area, where Tharax displayed a series of strategic maps and data on a holographic screen. They reviewed their situation, weighing their options and planning their next steps. As the discussion progressed, Jenna couldn't help but feel a surge of admiration for Virax. He was not just an alien. He was a courageous individual fighting for his survival and, in a sense, for justice. The respect she had for him had grown into something deeper, a genuine affection that transcended their differences. "We need to act quickly," Tharax said, breaking Jenna's reverie. "Drex will not be far behind. We'll need to coordinate our efforts to ensure your safety and neutralize the threat." Jenna looked at Virax, her eyes filled with determination. "We'll do whatever it takes. We can't let them get away with this." Virax smiled, a rare moment of warmth. "I'm grateful for your support, Jenna. Together, we can overcome this." The hours that followed were a whirlwind of activity. Tharax and his team worked tirelessly to gather intelligence and prepare for the confrontation with Drex. Jenna and Virax were involved in every step, their bond growing stronger as they faced the challenges ahead. As night fell, they were ready. Tharax had arranged for a secure transport that would take them to the location where they would confront Drex. Jenna and Virax stood side by side, their resolve unwavering. "Are you ready?" Jenna asked, her voice steady despite the tension. Virax took a deep breath, his eyes meeting hers. "Yes, we'll face this together." The transport was sleek and fast, cutting through the darkness as they approached their destination. Jenna's heart pounded as they neared the site of the confrontation. The stakes were high, but with Virax by her side, she felt ready to face whatever lay ahead. As they arrived, the tension in the air was palpable. Drex and his associates were waiting, their expressions cold and menacing. The confrontation was about to begin. Jenna and Virax stood tall, their determination shining through. Together, they would face the threat and fight for justice. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear: they were not alone. The end.